Okay, guys, so we are going to be doing the Matchmaker part 1 right now. So what you're going to do is go into ClassLink, and in ClassLink, you're going to click on Zello. You do not want to try logging in just from Zello because your password isn't going to be right. So use ClassLink in order to get logged in. So I'm going to click on Zello, and it's going to get me logged in. I already am logged in, so I'm just going to go over to my dashboard here. So in Zello, give it a second while it thinks. The first thing that we want to do is take the Matchmaker. So we're going to hit Get Started and launch Matchmaker. So the first question it's going to ask you is, what would you like to do after high school? So if you know that you want to do more school or training, so that could be a college, it could be a technical college, it could be community college, or something like that. You know you want to do something like that, more formal training or schooling, you're going to click on this one. An alternate route, so maybe you're going to do something, well, you can click on it, it'll actually tell you. So maybe you're thinking about going into the military, maybe you want to travel abroad, maybe you want to do different kinds of exploration in your community, or entering the workforce right off the bat. That would be alternate route. Or if you're not sure, you know what? Lots of people don't know yet. You're in middle school, so you might not yet be sure what route you're going to take. So you could click any of those. When I was in middle school, I did know I wanted to be a teacher, so I would definitely choose the more school or training because that's what I knew I was going to do. So then we're going to click Start the Matchmaker. We're going to answer these questions. You're just going to pick the emoji that works best for you. Before doing this, though, I always recommend clicking on this button here because it tells you more about it. So I'm just going to put whatever I think. Here's a good example of why we click on this button. Working outside in any weather. When I think about working outside in any weather, I think about when I was a lifeguard, and it was so wonderful. You guys absolutely loved being a lifeguard because you were outside, you know, hanging out by the pool. It was with a bunch of my friends. And when I was working, it was gorgeous and sunny and lovely. And guess what? If the weather was bad, it got canceled because we don't have the pool open when there's thunderstorms or when it's 50 degrees. So I never had to work outside in those conditions. If I click on this, though, so I'm going to click on this question mark, it says, this means being prepared to work outside even when the weather is cold, wet, or very hot. And then I think about, so there was maybe a year or two ago, a house being built just down the street, and there was these construction workers that were outside. I was on my way to school. It was before 7 o'clock, so they must have been there since 6:30, and it was probably about 10 degrees, maybe less, wind chill even worse yet, and it was like freezing rain type. It must have just been like ice pellets. It was really awful, and the wind was whipping around at like maybe 20, 30 miles per hour. It was like a terrible, terrible January day. And I just remember looking at them and thinking, wow, that's awful. Too bad for them. And then I was on my way home at 4:30, and they were still outside working in these conditions. And I just remember thinking that would be the worst job ever. So when I'm reading this, I need to think about the fact that I'm not just going to get to work outside when it's 75 and sunny. I might be outside like that construction crew when it's 10 degrees and pelleting ice and 30-mile-an-hour winds. So that might change my answer. You always want to check on these because before I might have said like very much. Now after I'm thinking about it, yeah, I want to be outside, but I'm not so sure I want to be outside when it's really awful out. So I might pick not sure. Can you see how going from liking very much to not sure, or maybe even saying dislike, that's really going to change your results. So you want to make sure as you're answering these, that you're really clicking on these question marks, you're really thinking about it. Because if at the end it turns out that you're like, I don't like these jobs, how did it come up with this? Well, it came up with it based on how you answered these questions. And if you don't do a good job thinking about how to answer the questions because you didn't click on the question mark, your results aren't going to be good. So do make sure you spend the time, work smarter, not harder. Don't make it so you have to go back and redo the Matchmaker. Do it right the first time. So I'm just going to go through here and continue to answer these. So here we go. And here we go. So I've got my results. You might see 3 or 4. So these are my top results here. You can also go to see more. You can see what clusters came up as my top ones. So I could see more of what I've got here. But once you've got that done, you have finished part 1 of the Matchmaker.